Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, as far as I understand, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. This is live show 1288. If you're not overly familiar with the show itself, format is changing as of this week. So as of tonight, format's going back to what we used to do, I think it was about 2 years ago. And we would just tackle the news. We would tackle the tabletop gaming news of the day. Here we still skew heavily towards role-playing game news. So that's pretty much what we're talking about tonight. And then there's usually something that we'll kind of tackle. There's something that's kind of on my mind because of something that happened yesterday. And we'll kind of talk about that. We'll talk about that after we get on into the tabletop role-playing game news tonight. So keep in mind, if you're not familiar with the show, just super casual, just hanging out, having fun. This is certainly not rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live stream, that means there is chat available. Now, you have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. So if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Mike. The Madman is with us, one of our chat moderators. Danny Gable, Kathy Evans, Semper Buffo, and Dark Autumn Scribe are all with us tonight in chat. So Dark Autumn Scribe said, hey, y'all, gotta watch later. So gonna let it run for about 10 to 15 minutes for the algorithm count. There you go. There you have it. Yep. Hey, anytime you're watching a video on YouTube and it's a channel you like, even if you happen to pop in and the topic isn't really something that, you're excited about, let the video go for a minute. Don't penalize the content creator simply because it's like, oh, I thought this video was going to be about something else. I like this person, but this video's not doing it for me. Just let it go for about a minute. Then it's all good. If you go strolling off someplace, it's fine. J-Man is with us as well, as is Mark Hawkswell. So welcome aboard. And of course, we might also have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D lurking in the shadows. Another of our chat moderators, she of the glittery banhammer. So behave, everyone. Of course, the Madman's here too, cracking his knuckles like, yeah, bring it in. So once again, starting tonight, we're going to go back to our news format. We're not going to do first looks at games anymore. I kind of talked about it last week. Talked about it a little bit before that as well. I just don't think it works all that well as far as getting the viewer numbers and things like that for the channel. I don't know. Algorithms here on YouTube make no sense to me at all, and they change constantly. So Lots of luck with that. Luna's Cave is also popping on in, as has W Forge. All right, so speaking about the news, let's jump on into the news, because now up on Kickstarter as of today for Free League Publishing is the highly anticipated Dragonbane Trudvang. Here's the scoop. Based on Free League's award-winning Dragonbane fantasy role-playing game and developed under license from Simon, the Kickstarter introduces 4 masterfully illustrated hardback volumes, bringing the mythic world of Trudvang to players worldwide. Inspired by Nordic mythology, Dragonbane Trudvang invites players into a unique realm of shadowed forests and wrathful gods, where heroes will uncover ancient mysteries, confront dreadful beasts, and experience a vast fantasy world. Now, a few months after this Kickstarter concludes, all backers will receive early access to beta PDFs for the 4 Dragonbane Trudvang books, giving players the opportunity to experience the world and begin their adventures months ahead of the official release. Across 4 beautifully crafted volumes, players can journey through the realm of Dragonbane Trudvang to uncover its many secrets, including the Dragonbane Trudvang core rulebook, a complete rule set built on, once again, the award-winning Dragonbane system, introducing new kin such as Stormlander humans and Korpikali elves, additional professions and life paths, ranked heroic abilities, and unique magic wielded by Vintner weavers and dim walkers. There's the world of Trudvang, a richly illustrated deep dive into the realm's history, lands, and faiths, spanning the Stormlands and Westmark to Soj and the Great Ice Plains. There's Yorgi's Bestiary, the classic monster compendium returns, featuring legendary creatures such as Brotbeast. Were they made out of like brats? Weiss, Hirstesher, and the ancient Yggdragas, all fully adapted for Dragonbane, and I guarantee I have mispronounced just about all of those. There's also the Saga of the Black Star, a revised 4-part epic campaign published in English for the very first time, sending heroes across Trudvang to confront a looming cosmic threat. There is a short, it's a little over 30 seconds, Kickstarter video. At least it'll give you a better look at some of the cool artwork. I wasn't kidding. That was a very, very quick video. Now, the project did launch over on Kickstarter today. It hit its funding goal within 4 minutes. Now, at about 4 or 5 hours in, it was at $500,000. So this is fully funded. No doubt about that. Now, you can reserve all 4 physical hardcovers with PDFs for a pledge of approximately $158. You can score just the PDFs for a pledge of approximately $78 through March 19th. Expected fulfillment for the physical books is going to be February of next year. And once again, supposedly the betas will be out a couple of months or so after this Kickstarter ends in March. So you're probably looking late May, maybe early June. Not too shabby. And I will point out, when you get the beta PDFs, they're usually almost complete. Almost complete. I think normally they're just missing a few pieces of artwork. But as far as this artwork goes, This is some pretty stunning art. We've seen this artist prior. I'm trying to remember. I know his last name is Bonner. I'm trying to remember the first name, but always thought this is pretty cool. I am not familiar with Trudvang at all. I understand it was a Nordic role-playing game that kind of focuses on Nordic myths. Trolls play a big role, no doubt, in this. And trolls are, huge giants, because that's the Nordic mythology regarding trolls. But gotta say, this looks pretty cool. And it's good to see this setting come back. And it's going to be plugged in with the, once again, award-winning mechanics from Dragonbane. I like Dragonbane quite a lot. So I will look forward to checking this out. Should also mention, while we're talking about Free League Publishing, the box set for the new edition of Coriolis is in transit. So we should be seeing that sometime maybe later this week. If it does show up later this week, I will get a first look video out there this weekend. All right. Very nice. Moving right along, now available in print and PDF, is Proteus Sector, a gazetteer for stars without number. And here's the latest from Sine Nomine Publishing. In Proteus Sector, the bitter memory of the augmented scars a dozen worlds once in thrall to their eugenic might and their terrible dreams of humanity more perfectly crafted for happiness. Against them, the believers of the Pure Alliance pray before the worship throne of their AI Pope, pleading with God for the strength for one more blazing crusade against their half-human foes. On other worlds, the survivors of the Protean Union, Baseline and Aug alike, struggle to find a way to live together in the shadow of a terrible past. And among the planets of the Great Pact, the inheritors of a merciless dream of perfection sculpt flesh and mind alike in service to a glorious future, which they alone were born to rule. Proteus Sector is a gazetteer of worlds for the Stars Without Number science fiction role-playing game, a collection of blighted planets and troubled stars cursed by the struggle between baseline humanity and the eugenic dreams of the augmented. The old tyranny of the New Dawn movement was broken 40 years ago, but their heirs in the Great Pact are preparing revenge against the zealots of the Pure Alliance and the hard-bitten survivors of the Protean Union. Amid this stellar Cold War are possibilities that do not exist in more peaceful sectors, and this gazetteer will give a band of daring freebooters all they need to exploit them. Within the pages of this gazetteer, you'll find planetary descriptions of 18 worlds, each with explicit adventure hooks and useful NPCs. GM tools for building adventures in Proteus Sector, including a step-by-step guide for starting a campaign in this setting. Quick smuggling and trade rules for GMs who want to give their players a mercantile way to get in deep trouble. The augmented partial character class for genetically boosted humans who possess fantastic abilities at the cost of a grave biological compromise in their gene line. Mandate Ghost Cipher, a fearsome collection of near-magical cybernetic systems from the distant, glorious past, each bearing the restless imprint of its original user. Protean forces with statistics for some of the common enemies to be found among these stars. You'll also find starships of the sector with new example ships, starship fittings, weapons, and defenses for the spacecraft of Stars Without Number. Whether for a GM keen to have more grist for their own campaign, or for a player interested in new possibilities, Proteus Sector will give you tools to expand your stellar vistas. Wonders and horrors alike await within its pages, so seize them all for your own. The 84-page softcover with PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. If you want to grab the PDF, you can do so for $14.99. Sweet. Very nice to see some new Stars Without Wonder content come out from Sine Nomine Press. Sounds like a pretty interesting sector setting as well. Very cool. Hey, speaking of eugenics, I have been playing the new video game Mugenics. It is very addictive. I gotta say, if you're not familiar with it, it is super bizarre. It is really off the wall. And you are breeding cats that you send out to do battle in the neighborhood. It's just really wild. It's really, really wild. But I'm having a hell of a time playing it. Like I said, speaking of eugenics, Mugenics, Meowgenics. So, some discussion of the Deadlands 30th anniversary Kickstarter. That is going to be on tomorrow's show. It was originally going to be on tonight's show. And then Free League shot me the email reminding me that the Kickstarter for Trudvang launched today. And personally, it's got more of my attention, I guess I'll say. The Deadlands 30th anniversary Kickstarter is mainly focused on a 30th anniversary book. Yes, I understand there's a new core book, there's a new starter set, but they've already pointed out, if you already own Deadlands, you don't have to buy the new starter set and the new core book, that the minor changes are going to be available in a PDF online. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'm not trying to steal any thunder from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. I just have a much closer relationship with Free League Publishing too. So there is that. W4 says, oh joy, another fantasy tabletop role-playing game. I wonder how many buying the game are players or just collectors. I would say probably quite a few players, especially those who are familiar with Trudvang, but just have never played it. Or because I'm pretty sure, wasn't it available through Cool Mini or not in English? But I guess there are some things getting translated to English for the first time. I don't know. Do not know. Boomerman Dan Webb is with us. Welcome aboard. And then we also have, I'm Yotan96 asking if I'm going to do a video on Pilgrims of the Merc Dome. I don't even know what Pilgrims of the Merc Dome is. I have no clue. All right, let's see. Kevin King has popped into chat. I think I've now said hello to everybody who has joined us. Very nice. All right. On our next news piece, Modiphius Entertainment and Humble Bundle have teamed to bring you the Fallout Tabletop Mega Bundle. I got the deets on the deal. Can you survive the wasteland? Already played every Fallout game? All caught up with the TV show? I will say this second season I didn't think was as good as the first. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can bring the wasteland right to your living room or any other room in your house, really, with this Fallout Tabletop Role-Playing Bundle from Modiphius. Got to point out, it's not only role-playing stuff, though. Just wait. You'll get rulebooks, supplemental materials, and 3D printer files for Fallout the role-playing game, Fallout Wasteland Warfare, that's a miniatures game, and Fallout Factions, also a miniatures game, and more. All the ingredients to set up your vision of Fallout's post-apocalyptic future. Whether you're a vault dweller, a ghoul, or suited up with the Brotherhood of Steel, you'll have everything you need to create your own adventure. And every purchase of this bundle at the price of your choice gets you a one-way ticket to the wasteland and also supports the ACLU. You can get started for $5 or go all in for a minimum donation of $25, and you will score all 61 items on offer, you heard me correctly, 61, including almost everything for Fallout, the role-playing game. For 25 bones or more. Remember, it's a donation. That is the minimum of the donation. These savings will run through March 5th. And this is Humble Bundles. So you know, when we talk about bundles, Humble Bundle always has rocking offers. I know Bundle of Holdings got cool stuff too, but you never score the kind of savings like you do at Humble Bundle. And yes, we do talk about Fanatical from time to time. Fanatical tends to roll out stuff that's old. I don't mean older, I mean old, right? Like Traveler and Twilight 2000 first and second editions, which is fine because you get tons of stuff for like $12. But still, I saw this, I was like, wow, this is a most rocking deal. W. Ford says, I thought about buying the bundle, but I'm not into the minis game. Well, I will say, if you are into the role-playing game, which I have reviewed the starter set and the core book, and then I think Modiphius got a new marketing person, and that was the end of that relationship. It's still a fantastic deal for 25 bucks. So W. Ford says, I think a third of it are STL files. That's about right. I would say, yeah, about 20 of them are STL files, but at least 20 of them are role-playing game related, or they could be. Because I know some of the Wasteland Warfare stuff can carry over to the role-playing game. But you can get all of that for about the price of the core book PDF. So, hey, buy it, don't buy it. I'm just sharing the news, folks. I'm just pointing out, I thought it's a rocking deal. W. Forge also pointed out, oh no, Simon, isn't that where games go to die? Well, it's actually where IPs go to be sold now. Because Simon has been shedding IPs left and right. That's why I'm surprised that they licensed Trudvang to Free League Publishing. Why didn't they just sell it to Free League? I don't know. Pete Stracklich is with us tonight. Says, greetings, gamers. I come with 2 body bags from my last session. Jeez. Yeah. All right. Moving right along. A new RuneQuest adventure is now available from our friends over at Chaosium Inc. And I've got the lowdown on Stealing the Eye. A temple to a now forgotten local earth goddess has been rededicated to Yara Arenas. Arenas? Let's say Yara Arenas. Sounds better. The goddess of the reaching moon. Can the adventurers unduel this cruelty? It's a standalone scenario for new players. Stealing the Eye contains everything you need for a riveting adventure of stealth and vengeance. Designed for new players, this scenario contains pre-generated characters, maps, and can be used with just the RuneQuest starter set. It's an introduction to the Lunar Empire as well. Lunar Tarsh lies close to the north, a region still greatly influenced by the Lunar Empire, the chaos-tolerating invaders, who until very recently claimed all of Sartar for their wicked red goddess. It is the lunar way to replace the worship of local gods and goddesses with their own 7 mothers, repurposing temples as they see fit. RuneQuest Stealing the Eye is designed for use with the RuneQuest starter set or RuneQuest role-playing in Glorantha. It can be combined with other titles in the RuneQuest line to enhance your gaming experience. This 14-page PDF is available now over at DriveThruRPG for $6.99. Good to see some new PDF adventures for RuneQuest arrive that isn't simply going to be the Jonestown Compendium, which there's a lot of cool third-party stuff for RuneQuest, don't get me wrong, but it is nice to see Chaosium release some adventures here and there. Speaking of Chaosium, you may have missed it, you may not have missed it, but this weekend I shared my review of Pendragon, the Sauvage King from Cubicle 7. Why do I keep trying to say Cubicle 7 when I talk about Pendragon? What the hell's wrong with me? What's going on here, Jeff? Crying out loud. I was so busy thinking about grabbing this cup and taking a sip. Why didn't I just say Wizards of the Coast, right? Yeah, no, RuneQuest from Wizards of the Coast. No. From Chaosium Inc. Anyway, so yes, the Sauvage King review is out. I got another review. I'll mention that later on in the show. So let's talk about my final news piece, because the latest investigation has arrived for the Delta Green role-playing game from Arc Dream Publishing. Here's what I know about New Age. Find Your True Light. July 1997. The controversial religious movement Enosis, famously litigious when called a cult, has long encouraged adherents to find inspiration and inner power with crystal realizers. To Delta Green, it's all ordinary grift and graft until international news outlets report an explosion in the home of a retired Air Force colonel with ties to the biggest defense contractors around. An explosion so strange that Delta Green's leaders have to pull in every favor to keep photos out of reporters' hands. An explosion that centers around the husk of the colonel, merged with the floor and still holding a realizer tight. What caused a strange blast? What does it have to do with Enosis, with its mysterious leader, the living power, with a massive planetoid suddenly looming in the middle of the solar system, never seen before? Your agents may have the misfortune to find out. The New Age is playable with Delta Green, the role-playing game, the award-winning horror RPG from Arc Dream Publishing. The 64-page PDF is available right now over at DriveThruRPG for $9.99. I think there's a few Delta Green products hitting very shortly. I think there was a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding run at some point. Sadly, I don't really hear from Arc Dream Publishing anymore. I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, hey, speaking of Arc Dream Publishing, if you were not aware, they are working on the Black Company role-playing game. There is supposed to be a playtest they're offering. I think you may have to join their Discord to get it. I know Chris Spivey of a lot of Call of Cthulhu adventure fame, and of course Weird West and Harlem Unbound, which is awesome for Call of Cthulhu, is working on that because he now works with Arc Dream Publishing. Curious if we're going to see like a Delta Green adventure written by Chris. That'd be pretty wild. Pretty interesting. All right. So that is it for the news tonight. Now, I did mention DriveThruRPG a few times. Of course, the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to visit DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, any of the various different One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. I should also point out, right now, there is a 40th anniversary sale for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay from Chaosium Inc. Well, I figured if I said Cubicle 7 Games for Pendragon, I might as well say Chaosium Inc. for Whiffrip, right? It's from Cubicle 7 Games. But you can save 40% off on any of the editions. So it's first, second, third. I don't think there was a ton released for the third edition. And of course, the fourth edition, which is from originally designed and such from Cubicle 7 Games. We're also working on a new edition. So it'll be a fifth edition. Let's see. So Dragon Lord WZ2 is popping on in, mentioning the stream may drop at any time. Most of YouTube is down. Okay, so at this point, we don't have any drop frames. So we have made it through the news portion. W4 says they've seen some stuttering. Yeah, that's not going to be on my end because they said 0 drop frames. Peace Rackledge says the Black Company's been on their to read list. I have listened to the audiobooks of the first 2 books. They're not bad. Not bad at all. I want to say I think there's a new novel on the horizon. It's coming out from Glenn Cook, a new book in the Black Company series. W. Ford says they saw my interview with Sean K. Reynolds and Shauna Germain from Monty Cook Games. Very good. Glad you enjoyed it. I wish that the video quality was better. And it was also a Zoom call. And I'm not used to doing Zoom as far as recording interviews and stuff. So I would have preferred to have had it where it had all 3 people in little screens. Then I could have thrown an overlay on it. But that's not how it was set up. So I don't know. All right. So Sarah D says, well, that explains why they couldn't load the main YouTube page. Had to click a link to get to the stream. All right. Tessie Trekkie says they liked how scary the death claws were in Fallout Season 2. I got to say, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, I thought it was fine. I thought the second season was fine. I just didn't like it as much as the first season. For one, too many storylines that they were trying to cram in there. So you would get like 10 minutes of one of the storylines in an episode, and then that would be it. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with the storyline with her brother. Not very exciting. I get it. I'm sure there's, underlying things going on there. I did find it kind of funny, the Canadians. I thought that was good. But yeah, I thought it was fine. I just didn't think it was great. That's all. So there is that. Anyway, so I should also mention, if you like this video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, be sure to click that little bell. And when you click that bell, indicate all notifications if you want to find out when I share videos or the stream goes live and so on and so forth. But if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, a couple other ways that you can support the outlet outside of, the affiliate links to One Bookshelf. One of them being making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Yummy. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. You will find links down in the show notes. Also down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It is absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. So the Tabletop Scholar is popping on in, says, watching Fallout sounds like reading Game of Thrones. Just give me more Jaime Lannister chapters. Am I right? Oh, yeah. I suppose. he becomes one of the better characters. That is for sure. Herb Richter is with us. Might be a first-time visit. So welcome aboard. Make yourself comfortable. Anyway, so tonight is the start of, well, I guess it's not really the start. It's a return to an earlier format of the Dispatch. And you got to realize the reason why it's called the Gaming Gang Dispatch is because of the news. A dispatch would be like a news release. It's a dispatch. Or you would see many city newspapers years ago, when most cities had more than one newspaper, you would have a newspaper with the name Dispatch, right? So the Sacramento Morning Dispatch, things like that. That's where the Dispatch comes from. So we're going back to simply talking news, and then whatever pops up, right? So I'm not wrapping up the show. Show's going to last about 60 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. We run more than that. I got something I want to talk about tonight, though, that I thought kind of curious about. Wonder what people watching will also think. But before I do that, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Visit our snack bar and treat yourself to some delicious Castleberry's pit-cooked barbecue sandwiches. Cook the Castleberry way, slowly over open pits of glowing charcoal, then seasoned with a sauce that's zesty, yet delightfully mild to please the entire family. Also at the snack bar, you'll find popcorn and soft drinks and candy and French fries to go with your Castleberry's barbecue sandwiches. There's plenty of time before the movie starts, so visit our snack bar right now for Castleberry's pit-cooked barbecue sandwiches.
Who is the ale man? Who can he be?
Famous sail manufacturer, company president, ale man. A man with a thirst for a manlier brew. Day is done, the race is won. Now hear this, all hands on deck for enjoyment. And that could only mean ale, Ballantine ale. Ballantine, the ale man's ale. Bolder, keener, more to the point. The choice of 3 out of 4 ale men among all national brands. Let Ballantine make an ale man out of you.
Who is the ale man? He could be you, a man with a thirst for a manlier brew. 3 out of 4 men every time choose the bolder, keener tasting ale. Ballantine.
Have some Wilkins coffee?
Well, I say, I'll take some.
Surprising how many people are switching to Wilkins coffee.
Crime has been committed. These detectives have been assigned to the case. Their job, round up the suspects. And that's what you try to do when you play Mattel's new lie detector game. The exciting new game of scientific crime detection. It could be any one of 24 suspects. Question each one. Is he telling the truth? The lie detector says no. Now check the racketeer.
Well, I think it was a guy with a big jaw.
Now you have one clue. Next, try the school teacher.
I saw him. I'm sure he had a mustache.
True again. Now you know the criminal had a big jaw and a mustache. By eliminating the other suspects, you're ready to make an arrest. And there he is, the playboy. With skill and the lie detector, you become chief of detectives. Mattel's lie detector game is real fun. Get it wherever toys are sold. Remember, you can tell it's Mattel. It's swell.
Why not go up to Montana?
And we're a shade old to start fighting Indians all over again, don't you think?
It is one of the most beloved stories of our time, hailed as one of the best westerns ever made, and now available like never seen before. Lonesome Dove, the 2-disc collector's edition. It's digitally remastered.
Pretty as ever.
For the first time in widescreen and 5.1 surround sound.
And besides the whiskey, I think will require a little respect.
See Lonesome Dove the way it was meant to be seen.
Yes, sir.
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning book by Larry McMurtry and winner of 7 Emmy Awards, Lonesome Dove remains one of the highest-rated miniseries in TV history.
It's a bad bunch we're after. Bad as I ever seen.
What we doing way up here, Mr. Gus? This ain't our country.
Featuring an all-star cast, Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones, Diane Lane, Danny Glover, Angelica Houston, Chris Cooper, Steve Buscemi, Frederick Forrest, Ricky Schroeder, D.B. Sweeney, and Robert Urich.
You coming? I guess if you watch, you'll find out, won't you?
This 2-disc collector's edition DVD features new, never-before-seen bonus extras that take you behind the scenes of the American classic.
I guess I can go where I want. It's a free country, ain't it?
Including the making of an epic, a 50-minute featurette, a brand new interview with director Simon Windsor.
It's a grand adventure and great entertainment. That's why people will watch it.
Never-before-seen interviews on the set with author Larry McMurtry, Danny Glover, Tommy Lee Jones, and Robert Duvall.
It's exciting and adventurous and heartbreaking.
I felt it was a privilege to play that part. Great part.
This 2-disc collector's edition includes a reprint of the original TV poster and a special introduction letter by director Simon Windsor.
Gus, I never thought I'd see so far.
Revisit the timeless epic like you've never seen it before. Lonesome Dove.
It ain't dying I'm talking about, it's living.
The 2-disc collector's edition, now available on DVD and Blu-ray.
So there were some of you out there who were wondering what was going to happen with the brief intermissions. As you can see, nothing's going to happen to them. They will continue. Of course, I do want to mention before I forget, big thank you to our Patreon members. I always like to give them a nice shout out during each of the live shows. So big thank you to Kaval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Matt Weiss, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, and the Madman. Tip of the cap to you all. So yes, Robert Duvall passed away yesterday at the age of 95. And I have got to say, he was one of my favorite actors. And he was a fantastic actor. He was in movies like Godfather, Godfather 2, The Great Santini, Tender Mercies. He won an Academy Award for. He was also in a movie that I want to say he wrote and directed, The Acolytes, which was really good. Obviously, Lonesome Dove. One of my all-time favorite Westerns that most people have never seen, Open Range, which is actually the trailer I wanted to share with you tonight, but I can't because it flags me for a copyright violation. So Apocalypse Now. I mean, there were so many movies that he was in, and I was a little irritated. Yes, there you go. THX 1138, Days of Thunder. A lot of movies that he was, kind of relegated to a character actor role, but there were also a lot of movies where he was the star. But I was a little irritated because the national news, TV, network news, I swear they made a bigger deal out of James Van Der Beek dying, which I'm not saying that's not a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing. They made a bigger deal of him passing away than Robert Duvall. And yes, I get it. James Van Der Beek was, 48? Robert Duvall, 95. So yes, Robert Duvall had a very nice run. But also, Robert Duvall was an Academy Award-winning actor, an Emmy Award winner. All these different awards he had been nominated multiple times for Academy Awards. It was a big deal. And it was like, oh yeah, Robert Duvall passed away. I mean, 2 nights in a row, they had stuff about James Vanderbeek. One night was like Katie Holmes and what, she had to say about his passing. And it was kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying, oh yeah, I'm glad that guy's dead. I'm just saying, come on. The network news drives me nuts anyway, because the vast amount of news that they have on there is not news. That's why most Americans are absolutely fucking ignorant about what's going on across the globe. But still, it was kind of like, W. Forge says, Duvall will get his recognition at this year's Oscars, I hope. Yeah, they'll give him a few, scenes, real quick cuts. Usually the bigger the star was, the more time they'll show little clips. So, let's see who just popped in. Kevin R. Smith is also with us in chat. I think I've said hello to everybody who's with us tonight. Anyway, so somebody actually jumped ahead of what I was thinking. And who was it? Because this is what we're going to talk about, because this is going to kind of be the format of the show going forward. Do the news, and then we'll talk about things that just pop in my head and stuff like that. Mike said, oh, now Lonesome Dove would be a great adventure for a Western role-playing game. That's what I wanted to talk about. Could you take Lonesome Dove and make a Western campaign out of it? I think it would be a fantastic campaign. I really, really do. Now, you got to keep in mind, I'm not sure how familiar some of you are going to be with Lonesome Dove. I have read all the books. I have also watched the miniseries. I didn't watch. Now, I used to have the original miniseries on VHS. I wore that sucker out because I used to paint miniatures, and I would toss stuff on just in the background. That was one I would have on all the time. But I didn't see. Now, I read like Streets of Laredo. I read, is it The Long Walk? I think is one of Comanche Moon I read. I've read some other Larry McMurtry Western stuff there as well. And Lonesome Dove itself, I mean, it won, the Pulitzer, if I remember correctly. And, I mean, that is like, stands head and shoulders above the rest. But there are arch differences between the books and the miniseries. In fact, there was even a Return to Lonesome Dove miniseries, which is supposed to have picked up where Lonesome Dove ended. And then there was Streets of Laredo, which is completely different. Because I don't think Larry McMurtry had anything to do with the Return to Lonesome Dove. Kind of weird. Pete Stracklet says, write the Lonesome Dove adventure for Weird Frontiers. No, you would have to play it straight. So you would actually have to play it straight, in my opinion. The Red Caps is with us, asking, how excited is everyone for Trudvang? I just shared the news. It was the first piece. Zarkwan73 is also joining us once again. Manman says Lonesome Dove is currently available on Tubi. It's on his watch list. I wonder if it's the regular format or if it's the widescreen, because you can watch it in HD. It might only be 720. Actually, it shouldn't though, because it was shot on film. So you can go higher definition if it's shot on film. And somebody else had pointed out, hey, that's kind of weird. An American Western directed by an Australian director. I think it was filmed in Australia too. Thus the Australian director. In fact, I could have W. Ford says, isn't it McMurtry? Yeah, what did I just say? Larry what? But yes, it is Larry McMurtry. I don't know. Anyway, so I was thinking, how could you put together a campaign from, for Lonesome Dove? And you would want to go, like I said, you're going to play it straight. So you'd be using something like, Boot Hill, or what are some of the other just regular Western? I mean, you could go High Noon at Midnight for the cipher system, because there are things there to make it just a standard Western kind of stuff. So you could go with that. I know there's some other, what is Aces and Eights is another role-playing game that's the Old West and stuff like that. But the Red Cap says, in booktube circles, there's a whole new generation of young men diving deep into Lonesome Dove books recently. I'm kind of surprised. Mike says Lonesome Dove and Quigley Down Under. I remember Quigley Down Under. Both formative for their young adulthood. W. Ford says, well, you get to play Texas Rangers. Yeah, you get. So as far as the major characters go, you've got Augustus McCrae, which was Robert Duvall, and he won an Emmy for that. He's a former Texas Ranger. You've got Tommy Lee Jones, played Woodrow Call, also former Texas Ranger. P.I. Parker, who, weirdly enough, is a pretty minor character in Lonesome Dove, but a very major character in Streets of Laredo. And you've got Danny, that was Tim Scott. Danny Glover is Joshua Dietz, who, weirdly enough, in the book, he's a former Texas Ranger. In the miniseries, he's a scout. And it's kind of funny because he wears like an old beat up kepi hat, like a forage cap from the Civil War. And it looks like it's a Union cap. And it's kind of funny because you would think Woodrow, in fact, I could have swore, I think McCrae even talks about being a Confederate. Anyway, Boomer Man Dan Webb says maybe play it with Savage Worlds. There you go. I wouldn't use it with Deadlands, but yeah, Savage Worlds. Mike says Tales of the Old West role-playing game just came out. So yeah, there's plenty of role-playing games out there that you could adapt this for. Okay, so right there, I think those are 4 characters that you could have analogs of as far as the player characters. I also think that Dish Boggart, who is played by D.B. Sweeney, also make for a good player character. Newt, Rick Schroeder, he would make for a player character, although it depends on, if you want to tie in the fact that Call is his father or not. See, I would think that this would make for something that would be really good for role playing. Maybe not necessarily shoot 'em up, right? Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Lonesome Dove that's environmental or character driven. I don't think the Robert Ulrich character of Jake Spoon, who's also a former Ranger, who actually is the character who gets the whole thing moving along to go to open a ranch up in Montana, because they're all down in Texas. I don't think he would make for a good PC. He would make for an excellent NPC. Dan Webb says actual scouts were badass back in the day, but Texas Rangers have a better name. Like I said, it's kind of weird. He is a Texas Ranger in the book. He's not in the miniseries. W4 says they loved Silverado as a teen. Yeah, I watched it not too long ago. It hasn't aged all that well. It's not bad. But, I mean, it was one of those Westerns that came out there. It was like, oh, the Western's back. And, I mean, it was because, you know, it was a pretty big hit. Sadly, as far as characters go, not much cooking with the female characters. So you've got the prostitute, right? Lorena Wood. That's Diane Lane. I don't know. I don't really see that being, you know, player character. And then you've got Angelica Houston. Great characters. I just don't think they translate very well into player characters for a campaign. Now, what I would think is if you had like a female character, you could maybe have one of the cowboys, it's their wife, or you could have the cook. I know it sort of sounds like I'm being, you know, oh, wait a second. Oh, sure, the woman gets to be the cook. But if you think about it, that would involve that character in a lot of activities in town where they would be joining the other characters going to town because they're looking to get supplies, right? So I think that would be a good way to incorporate and still try to stay relatively realistic to the time period and stuff. So as far as key points in a Lonesome Dove campaign, obviously enough, forming the Hat Creek Trail crew would be one. So as a game master, I think you would really need to have a nice roster of NPCs who are part of the trail crew, who are also characters from the book, from the miniseries, like July Johnson would be a great NPC. Blue Duck is going to be your big bad, the half-breed Indian who actually has one of the coolest lines in the entire miniseries at the end. And I know if I'm giving out spoilers here, hey, it's what, 36 years ago, something like that. So if you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what to tell you. But towards the end of the miniseries, when Captain Call, he's in some town and they've captured Blue Duck, who has been like an antagonist for the Texas Rangers for decades, right? And he says to Call that he murdered and stole and raped and pillaged for years, and the Texas Rangers couldn't do anything. It was like, yeah, that's kind of a jab there, huh? Danny Gable says, no spoilers. Dan Webb says, Lonesome Dove, I can see as a campaign. I'd use old Western TV shows as quick one-off adventures. Yeah, of course. Most definitely. You would include stuff that are kind of Western tropes or trail drive tropes, because it's a cattle drive. They're just not driving the cattle to Kansas to sell the cattle. They're driving horses and cattle up to Montana to open a ranch. So I would say some of your set pieces that you would have is forming the trail crew. They go and they steal the horses down in Mexico. They steal the cattle too down in Mexico. So that would be something else. Environmental sort of encounters like dust storms or trying to find water, or once they get a little further up north, blizzards. You've got encounters with Blue Duck. And then there's some Comancheros, I should say, that he doesn't necessarily team up with them, but he goads them into going after Augustus. You've got the July Johnson storyline. Could be an NPC that the player characters encounter. Jake Spoon, another storyline that would be really nice to include in, because Jake Spoon is the driving force to getting this whole, cattle drive up to Montana going, and then he wants nothing to do with it. He just wants to, go and gamble and whore and stuff like that along the way. And that's why I'm saying he wouldn't make for a great player character, but a fantastic NPC. Once again, I'm trying to stay away from some spoilers here. But if you know Lonesome Dove, that would be just an excellent kind of I don't want to say like a side quest, but it would be a storyline that would be running along with it as well. You have all the different visits into towns along the way. Ogallala plays a big role in Lonesome Dove and Streets of Laredo as well. So, Dan Webb says, man, you're really selling it. Don't need no freaking Eye of the Beholders. Dan Webb said they definitely watched the series all over, just to put together a list of NPCs and required character types. And there would also be certain things that you would want to make sure are present, so because obviously you're not looking to just recreate Lonesome Dove at the game table. That would be silly, right? Because, okay, well, I know what's going to happen here, but you would want to have that same, you want to capture the essence of the West at that particular time. Now, Lonesome Dove doesn't necessarily really get into it. Streets of Laredo focuses a bit more on it, that, that the West is settled. The West isn't wild anymore. People like Captain McCall, well, their efforts are respected and appreciated. There's no place for them really anymore. So the West, the Wild West is ending. So that's something that you would want to kind of have at the forefront of a campaign that you're building off of Lonesome Dove. Something else you would want to make sure to really make present is, life is cheap and life can end very, very quickly on the frontier. And there's actually, and it's pretty shocking in the book. It's pretty shocking in the miniseries. There are some side characters with a plot line that are all of a sudden killed. And you're like, what? Like, holy shit, what? And that happens throughout the book. There's a river crossing and one of the hands gets bit by water moccasins and dies. And the reality is the only Rangers that survive are Captain Call and P.I. The other former Rangers don't survive the trip to Montana. They don't get to Montana to see it. So that would be something that you really want to bring forward. And another reason why you'd want to have a really solid selection of NPCs is because then you've got an easy roster to choose from if a player character gets killed. So if you had, say, Dish, who's he's kind of becomes the, what do they call it? It's not the trail chief, the trail boss. He becomes kind of the trail boss for the company. Like I said, that would make for a very cool player character. Yeah, he could easily get killed. Well, you've got all these other NPCs that you're going to try to create a bit of a relationship with the players and their characters with. W Forge asks, did I miss any mention of a cattle mechanic? No, you would have to have that. I would think any more modern Western role-playing game is going to have some sort of like cattle drive mechanics. I would think you're essentially making this like a hex crawl. It's a hex crawl from down by the Rio Grande up to Montana. And you would probably have each hex be 25 miles, thereabouts. And not every hex is going to have some sort of an encounter to it. A lot of the encounters that would take place would just kind of be slice of life events, right? So Indians that the company encounters looking to trade for cattle or horses, even just to eat. Maybe they're starving, because that actually is something that happens in the book and the miniseries too. So Dan Webb says lots of beans. But yes, you would have to have some sort of like a mechanic as far as like cattle losses, stampedes. So there you go. There's something else that you can have. You want to make sure that like the Badlands of Wyoming is something that's present too, because at this point in time, Wyoming is just really the frontier. So Man says Deadlands does a good job with cattle drive in the Blood Drive adventure. Yeah, like I said, most games should have, most Western games should have some sort of mechanics for a cattle drive. I've mentioned before that when I was I think it was the summer between freshman year and sophomore year, Elliot, my best friend Elliot Miller, Scott Weigel, who has popped in from time to time in chat, who I went to high school with, and Tim Phelan, another friend of mine who actually got back into gaming probably maybe 5 years ago. Every once in a while he reaches out on Facebook asking for a recommendation for board games and stuff. We went to like a little like game day. Used to see those a lot, back in the 80s and that. You would see like a game weekend or a game day that was sponsored by like a hobby shop or something. And I'll never forget, it was sponsored by a place out in Mount Prospect, Illinois called the Squadron Shop. And I think it was more of a hobby shop that was models, but they also had, board games and role-playing games and stuff like that. But they were mainly, a model shop. And we went and we played in a game. If you've probably heard the story, if you watch, this religiously, we played a game where it was an older gentleman who was probably around my age now. And if I remember correct, my friend Daryl Melzer might have been with us as well. So Scott's mom drove us. Scott's mom drove us out there, dropped us off in the morning because we had heard about this. I don't know how. In fact, if I remember right, I think Scott had found out about this game day. And so we went. So we ended up, all of us, in this game that was Boot Hill, but it was this gentleman's like homebrew Boot Hill. So the first edition of Boot Hill was out. The second edition wasn't out. Probably wasn't even on anybody's mind at the moment. So this guy had a lot of other like systems and mechanics and stuff that really fleshed out Boot Hill. And we played in a cattle drive, and it was based on the John Wayne movie Chisholm. So it was the Chisholm Trail. And man, it was a blast. It was like 4 hours, and we just had just a hell of a good time. And of course, we run into Billy the Kid, and all this other stuff. And I was like, wow. And I'll never forget, this gentleman was talking about how he'd actually contacted TSR, had gone up to Lake Geneva to meet with TSR, and shared with them all of this material he had come up with. Because obviously he was someone who was just a big fan of Westerns. You could really tell. And TSR shot him down. I was like, wow, that sucks. I would bet dollars to donuts that TSR probably incorporated some of the stuff he shared with them into the second edition of Boot Hill. I don't know, just got a feeling. Because he showed us. And it was like page after page. And it was really, I mean, granted, it didn't look like it was, something you'd see today published. But it was right there with like Judges Guild stuff. That was pretty wild. Mike says the character backstories would play into the encounters, of course. So your player characters, when you would create the characters, you would want to make sure that regardless of what system you would use, right? So original Boot Hill as a role-playing game is pretty weak. I mean, it's better than like Morrow Project was with that first edition. But it's more a gunfight simulator than anything else. And then, in fact, the scenarios that are in the first edition of Boot Hill are simply combat scenarios, like the gunfight at the OK Corral. Although one thing I thought was kind of cool is that they had both historical and fictional characters stat blocks in the original Boot Hill. W4 says Lonesome Dove would degrade into Blazing Saddles with their group. But you know what? That might be fun too. I don't necessarily buy into, and I'm not arguing with W4. I don't necessarily always buy into that every group, even if you kid around, which we do when we're playing, but we still can stick to like the adventure. I know I hear from game masters and that talk about how, well, the adventure starts off one way and then it just becomes just all goofiness and silliness and stuff like that. Do they really? I mean, because to me, as a player, I'd kind of be like, hey, I kind of want to know what happens with this story, right? I kind of want to like play this kind of straight, not necessarily just for laughs. And I would think as a game master, that would kind of maybe be a little irritating. Now, it's one thing if you're setting out to do, a fantasy role-playing game and it's like anything goes. But if you were, looking to do something that's, fairly serious and everybody just turned it into a big joke, I think as a game master, I'd be a little disappointed in my group, to be honest. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just floating this out. Like I said, I saw Robert Duvall pass away yesterday. I was like, oh man, that sucks. I always liked Robert Duvall. In fact, it was the weirdest thing. Last week on last Thursday's show, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, I almost started talking about Open Range being one of my favorite Westerns. But I didn't. I kind of just came and went. Then when I saw Robert Duvall passed away, I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I hadn't thought about that movie in, 4 or 5 years. So W4 says, depends on the genre. Yeah, I get it. when life is on the line, it gets a little more serious. When we try to put on our acting chops is when things start to fall apart. Oh, I'm not like knocking your group. It's just sometimes I hear from some game masters who are like, oh, my players can't take anything serious. It's like, everything just becomes a big joke to them. And I don't know if that's really the case. I mean, I would think most players would hopefully have some respect for their game master, that if they knew the game master was kind of trying to run something straight up, not being a laugh fest. Like I said, we laugh all the time. We're always kidding around, but it's more like snide remarks or offhanded comments kind of stuff. It's not, oh, my player character is going to do something really stupid or asinine or whatever. So anyway, so this is going to be kind of the format of the show going forward. Most of you are sitting there going, oh, man. That is it. Yeah. Think I'll be leaving once the news is over. It's not always going to be like this. One of the other reasons why I sort of wanted to move away from doing the live first looks is because sometimes I just kind of want to fuck around, right? And then joke around, talk about different stuff, or talk about a topic, which isn't going to be like, oh, that's the focus of the show, but talk about a topic that maybe publishers wouldn't necessarily want their games associated with. Like we'll talk about this tomorrow, but I've noticed all of a sudden, like Dungeon Tube creators floating out the titles of these videos. I almost fell for a Kickstarter scam. That's like, and as far as I understand, the premise is that they almost got conned into doing a video that they would have gotten paid for after the fact, but they wouldn't have gotten paid. Now, I could be wrong, but that was kind of the premise that I got out of it. And it's sort of like, okay, but for one, who in their right mind would agree to do a video for a Kickstarter project and not get paid up front? Like, what? I mean, when I do Kickstarter previews, I get paid up front. I don't start filming anything. So Mike says, love it. Great times. Very nice. Well, like I said, we're just going to be kind of hanging out. And sometimes when I'm doing first looks at stuff, it's kind of like, I would make this wise ass comment, but I better not, because it might not go over too well with XYZ publisher that we're looking at their stuff right now. Or, I've also, not from publishers, but I have heard from commenters when I be doing a live first look and then somebody says something in chat and then we start discussing what's going on in chat and I'm kind of flipping through. People are like, well, you're not focusing on the book that you're looking at or the game you're looking at. It's like, well, yeah, that's a live chat though. I'm not going to ignore people who are taking time out of their busy lives to hang out and watch this video and be like, hey, shut up. I'm trying to page through this. I'm going to do that. W Ford says, admittedly, I get annoyed when players pick silly names for a serious campaign. I don't know what it is with my players. They just can't pick a name to save their lives. It's like, come on, really? Go online. Go to a name generator. Pete's Racklett says, one of their players acted out the cast of Desperate Housewives for their Brandolin Red adventure, which is if I remember correctly, it's a Valentine's Day adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's one of the horror tales, though. I think it's part of the horror line I could see that. See, now I could see a game of Dungeon Crawl Classics devolving relatively quickly. Not to the point where it's like, oh, for God's sake. But because so much crazy stuff can happen simply because of the roll of the dice. And if you're playing a funnel adventure, like, oh yeah, that wasn't the brightest idea there, was it? Guess maybe you shouldn't have pushed that red button, eh? But that, yeah, I mean, as long as everybody's having fun. So yes, Pete Strikewood says, yes, you got it, Jeff. It's a horror adventure. Yeah, like I said, I thought it was one of their holiday releases. But yeah, as long as everybody's having a good time, of course. I mean, you know, I guarantee you there are some game masters out there who take their games far, far too seriously as well. So even like Call of Cthulhu, running Call of Cthulhu, there's usually zingers flying, not constant. But in fact, one time we hadn't played in quite a while, and I was trying to get the guys into Massive Nyarlathotep, knowing that it was like, well, you know, it's probably a losing battle here. And Elliot was just like Mr. Wisecracker, like everything out of his mouth starting the adventure. It was like, joke, joke, joke. And I could tell even the other players at the table were like, so I finally said to him, I said, oh, is this how it's going to be? Just let me know right now. Is this how it's going to be? He said, oh, sorry. I was like, and I was kind of a dick about it, but still, it was sort of like, come on, man, we're going to play Call of Cthulhu here. I'm starting this Call of Cthulhu adventure, and you're like wisecracking it up. It's like, you haven't even gotten started yet. I'm giving you the premise. So, all righty. So that's it for the first live stream of the return to the old format. Hopefully it's all right. Like I said, I understand a lot of people who watch the live stream tend to tune in for the news anyway. So it's not as if not doing live looks at stuff is going to be, in the overall scheme of things, that big a deal. I mean, yeah, granted, there'd be times where have, 1,500, 2,000 views on a live stream because of something I shared a first look at. But the reality is, as a separate standalone video, probably would get more people because they're not seeing an hour and 45 minutes. But it's just a first look at the new D&D book. What the hell? All righty. So if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chats, tip of the cap to you. Because not only are you keeping me company, keeping each other company while I'm sitting there going through the news. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. It is vastly appreciated. It is. It truly is. So enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you ring that bell, make sure you click on all notifications, because that way you'll know exactly when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. But you'll also find out when I share other videos, such as my recent review of The Fungus That Came to Blackswell for Dolmenwood from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. I got more. I got a couple more Dolmenwood adventures to share reviews of as well. Very cool. Very cool. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very kindly for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.